Oh my gosh, awesome. Let's see. We're going to go live. Oh, LinkedIn's giving me issues.
Looks live on my end.
Well, then we're going to use yours. That's
Oh,
very strange. All right, well, that's okay. We're going to go with yours. I'm going to try to remove and re-add it. Let's try this because ultimately I do want to get it on all the episodes. Yay. Oh, technology. Hey, friends who are watching the replay. Sorry about that. Let me just dive right in, introduce our guests for this week's episode. You didn't pour your time, energy, and insight into a book just to say you did it. You wrote it because your message matters and because you knew that getting it into the hands of others could spark something bigger. A book has staying power. It captures what you stand for and how you think in your own words. Done well, it becomes more than a tool, it becomes a turning point. It can shift how people see you, what opportunities come your way, and the kind of legacy you leave behind. And that's why I focus on what happens after the writing is done. Publishing your book is a milestone, but the real magic happens when you start using it to fuel your mission, grow your platform, and create lasting impact. If you're ready to think beyond the publication day and explore how your book can support the future you're building, schedule a complimentary 30-minute book launch brainstorm session at booklaunchbrainstorm.com. And now I'm excited to introduce our panelists, authors who are using their books to open doors and grow their influence. With me today, we have Bruce Scheer, who wrote Inspire Your Buyers, Go to Market with a Story That Sizzles, to show you how to craft a clear, compelling narrative that gets everyone from your team to your target buyers on the same page and fired up to take action so you can close more deals and grow faster. And Diane Wolf, who wrote 14 Nights to Better Sleep, a proven plan to recharge, refresh, and reclaim your nights, a science backed, practical guide that helps you reset your sleep habits in just 2 weeks so you can quiet your mind, reclaim your energy, and finally get the rest your body and brain deserve. And lastly, we have with us today Sophie Lechner, who wrote Unlock Your Impact, the roadmap to magnetic client attraction for entrepreneurs who hate marketing. A refreshing guide for mission driven entrepreneurs who want to attract clients naturally by leading with purpose instead of self promotion and transform marketing from a dreaded task into a joyful extension of their impact. Please join me in welcoming Bruce, Diane, and Sophie. Thank you all for being here. And Bruce, I'm going to kick this first question over to you. Give us a little sense of who you wrote your book for. Who's the ideal reader? And welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I wrote this beautiful book for revenue leaders and also individual sellers, anybody who wants to really stand apart and lead with a narrative. And Sophie, I know you and I are going to become best friends because, it's not all about you and about your product, et cetera. I normally tell people I help them move from geek speak to C-suite and having a better narrative, a better story to tell as they're going to market with their solution.
You know, my background, Bruce, is actually in fundraising, and one of my clients is a fundraising expert, and we were just talking about the book she launched last year, and she was looking for new ideas, and I was telling her how back in the day, I ran a training on fundraising called Getting Past the Fear of Asking, and I would have board members and staff in the room, and I would ask them this question: tell me about a time you saw your mission in action. And the most dynamic, incredible, heart-wrenching sometimes stories would be shared. And I would say, why do you have any angst about fundraising? Like, that's your story. Like, that's the reason you're committed. And that's why others will be committed too. And I feel like finding that in your context, I feel like it's rare because people forget how important that is. And I'm so glad your book exists for that reason. I'm going to go over now to Diane. Diane, welcome to the show and tell us about this book.
Thank you. Well, I'm a psychotherapist in private practice. I work primarily with first responders who have PTSD, and sleep disturbances are a hallmark of PTSD. I also believe that getting restorative sleep is the foundation of mental health. So we work on that first, but I'm also a former insomniac. I've had trouble sleeping most of my life, starting as a child when I told my parents when I grew up, I'm never going to bed. and I had to learn to become a super sleeper. And so there are a lot of people that I encounter who are not necessarily first responders and don't necessarily have PTSD, but who have difficulty getting solid 7 to 8 hours of restorative sleep every night. And that is so important. So my audience is anyone who struggles with getting enough sleep, particularly, I must say, menopausal women. There's something about aging hormones and women that go together and make a lot of sleep difficulties. But really, anyone who feels that they're not waking up in the morning refreshed and have difficulty getting to sleep or staying asleep, that's who I can help.
So, Diane, I see you and Sophie on a regular basis as part of the Content and Connection Club. And I remember just a couple of weeks ago coming in and having to admit to you that my sleep had been really disrupted over the previous 2 weeks. And I can tell you, just that little time frame, my word recall started to slip. Like I'm a pretty on my feet thinker. I just did not have that word recall, and that was just with like a few nights off in a 2-week time frame. So I think what you're doing can just give people back this like way of life that will feel so different. And the possibility of it for those who feel like, oh, I've tried everything, this is a great book to try. In 2 weeks time you'll know more, and if you feel like you still need help, then there's folks like Diane who can continue the conversation. Speaking of which, let's head over to Sophie. I love your subtitle so much, For Those Who Hate Marketing. All right, so tell me, who are the people that hate marketing?
Yes, that word hate is really attractive to the people who actually really feel that. So so it's really for mission-driven entrepreneurs, and I have a pretty broad definition. It's somebody who is in this business of entrepreneurship because they have a passion, they have somebody in mind that they want to help, and they also have a big message that they want to share broadly. So they have this generosity that drives them, and these people tend to you were talking about your mission and how that can drive you and how we forget that. And I found that in so many entrepreneurs. They start the entrepreneurial journey and then get bogged down with all this marketing and all these gurus that are talking to us about what we should do, the funnels, the this, the that. And they find themselves in this situation where they hate their marketing, and they're locked in. They're completely stuck because they can't do this marketing because they hate it so much and they don't know how to do it effectively. And so that's why my book is called Unlock Your Impact, because once you understand marketing and you're able to enjoy it, then you can unlock your impact.
Well, and I'm so glad, Diane and Sophie, you both have fairly new books. I'm so glad you kind of got out of your own way to write this and get it out there. And actually, that's my next question, because I do think that getting a book written, and Bruce, is this your only book, or do you have other books?
I've co-authored another one, and which also is a bestseller. It's done really well with Mark Schaefer, if you've heard of him, Robbie.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. So, all right. So, Diane, how did you decide to do this? Like, what was the impetus for writing the book, and how did you move forward? Like, like, were there any voices in your head about it? And Sophie, I'm going to ask you the same question in a second.
Well, I have about 20 clients I see every week, and that's a very small number of people compared to all of the people who have trouble sleeping. So initially, I found myself saying the same things over and over and over because it's a process. So at one point, I thought I should write this down as sort of a standard operating procedure as a psychotherapist. But then the more I thought about it, I thought, it's a short book. It's only about 30 pages because it's very concise, and people who are sleep deprived don't want to read a textbook, and there are fabulous textbooks out there. And I just thought we need this manual, basically day one, do this, and here's the science behind why. And I just realized that if I can get this into the hands of thousands of people, we won't be such a sleep deprived society anymore.
I love it. And being around other authors probably helps, like hearing about other people's journeys. And I know Sophie was inspired. You mentioned this to me, Sophie, about like the Kindle flash sales that I started organizing in late 23, and you didn't have a book in 23. So you were like, oh, and I'm gonna write this book. But you did write the book. And I also think that you had to figure out what book to write, because for you, it wasn't as, I feel like for Diane, it was a little more crystal clear what her message was going to be. How did you sort of arrive on the messaging and decide to commit to it?
Yeah, so I initially started I wanted to, similar to Diane, I had something that was working for my clients, and so I really wanted to share that much more broadly. But initially, I was still a little bit unclear what it was that was actually helping my clients. And as I was a LinkedIn coach, I started writing a book about LinkedIn. And then I got bored with it. And I was like, who needs another manual on how to use LinkedIn, right? So I stopped. It was just so easy. It was just flowing out of me. But then I realized it's really something a lot deeper that is helping my clients. It's these key marketing fundamentals. And so I created a model around that, and then that's what I decided to share in this book. And yeah, it's really this whole idea of getting this into the hands of as many people as possible so they can benefit from it.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Bruce, I'm curious your experience between the first book you wrote with Mark Schaefer and this book. Did anything change about what metrics you thought were important besides you sort of mentioned hitting #1 bestseller, but I feel like you and I know each other through the National Speakers Association, so I imagine you also had talk related to it or some sort of business connection. But lessons learned from book 1 that you applied to book 2?
Oh gosh, funny enough, they both came out about the same time.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was kind of a wild process. Mine took a while to come out, actually. That was my first book, and I kind of went in and out and put it on the back burner for a while, and then picked it up again, and lost confidence, gained confidence, changed stories. Yeah, just as you guys have probably already done that yourselves in finding true north on the book. There's so many dimensions of it creating value. But like the others, I love your message, Sophie, about impact. That's what's really driven me around this. But, I offer it in different ways. I give it away for free when I meet people. I was at a networking event last night, and this is one thing I'm proud about. So, I share that with others, but I always offer, hey, would you like a free copy? And, it's so many different ways. People who organize speaking events, have me come in, and they love the fact that there's a personally signed book as part of the deliverables for the guests. And the book is great. So when people read it, they like it. And that's a joy. And yeah, so anyways, just it's multifaceted. Of course, you guys have had that experience, I hope. But
well, I appreciate that you're sharing that it wasn't a straight line journey for you. Because I know people who are listening and still in that early stage of getting a book written or thinking about even writing a book. It's just a daunting mountain to climb. And then you sometimes realize you're climbing the wrong mountain, which, Sophie, that was a little like, you're like, I wrote a lot of words about, and then you're like, I'm kind of bored. Like, because you have to still want to talk about the book, like after the book comes out. I always joke that I know my book is ready for publication when I'm just tired of reading it. Like I don't want to look at this again until it is like a finished book. I read it. I've read it. I've read it aloud. I've had other people read it aloud. Like I just can't. But you still have to be really excited about the content to talk to clients and prospects and to begin on shows and to do talks. So finding that pathway forward around the right piece of content is tricky. And then you were also saying the idea of it being tied to like bulk sales of books for speaking and such. So what would you like to add, Bruce?
Oh, just some of the benefits of that, squirrely process where, I had some mentors that have also had bestsellers. One of my mentors has New York Times bestsellers, part of his. And they really drove me to make a quality product. So my wife made an animation for me around the book, and I put that on LinkedIn yesterday. But I went to her and I'm going to go, hey, where'd you get the audio for this? Did you use 11 Labs, some AI tool or whatever? And she goes, no. I got that as a clip from your audiobook file. I'm like just going, damn, that sounded good. So Robbie, I'm not sick of it. I'm kind of re-enjoying my book and really loving it.
Yeah, a little bit of space can bring that joy back.
Oh, yeah. I needed the space.
You need a little space. The other thing you were saying a moment ago, you're talking about bestseller status. So talk to me a little bit about what your expectations were on becoming a bestseller. You distinguished a moment ago New York Times bestseller versus maybe Amazon. What were your expectations around this for your book, and how has being a #1 bestseller and what format that was impacted sales or other things related to your business?
My expectations kind of did this just like the book writing process. I thought I was going to be a rock star, a Taylor Swift type of status is what I was looking for. And I haven't made it yet, but it's exceeded my expectations big time, especially, Robbie, as I hear what the average author, what their sales look like, et cetera. I'm like just going, I'm really lucky. And hopefully, or my audience, I believe, is lucky too. I think it's great content, really moves the world forward. But I'm just blessed and where it's at now. And somebody told me, a guy in the National Speakers Association told me my book is still a toddler. It's only 2 years old. And so I'm also now trying to have that toddler grow up, and I'm doing more energy into promoting it. Sophie, I don't know if you've heard of this maxim. You should, a guy named Jay Baer, also in the National Speakers Association, said you should spend 50% on your marketing and then 50% on marketing your marketing. And so I'm focused on marketing my marketing right now, that book. And that's bringing me into new client engagement, speaking opportunities, et cetera, as well.
I love that we're focusing on metrics beyond just hitting #1 on Amazon. Let's talk about book sales for a second. The latest numbers I've heard, I think it's about 100, average is 100 in the first year, 250 to 300 in a lifetime of a book, which it's both incredibly low. And if you're not selling more than 10 copies to your family, it feels like you'll never get to 300. So obviously there are extremes in both ends. There are some books that sell almost none, and there are some books that sell thousands. But 10,000 copies in a year puts you way at the top of the bestsellers as far as quantity of books, not just that you hit #1 for like that particular hour on one Amazon category. And to sustain those kinds of sales is really incredible. So I love what you've been doing. And in a moment, we're going to come back to you, Bruce, because you've done some really cool things with reviews. But I'm actually curious, Sophie, I'm going to come back to you and talk about what your expectations were for your book. Like, what were some of the metrics of success that you were going to look for to know like your book had achieved everything you'd set out for it to do?
So I'm not really good at, I don't tend to do metrics that much. So I didn't really have numbers in mind. However, having hung out with you for a few years before that, I did have the idea that perhaps in my wildest dreams, I could get 50 reviews. And I knew from you that was something that would bring me benefits in the future. My main objective was to share the magnet model broadly, but to recruit people into my program so that I can really go in depth with them and help them apply it. And that has materialized. So, I mean, obviously a lot more to come, right? I'm just in the pilot phase, but that's what I'm doing right now. And just to go back to the reviews for a minute, within a few days, I had my 50 reviews. So I sent an email saying, oh, revised objective. My goal is now 100. And I'm now working my way towards that, but I'm getting very close.
Yeah, actually, you have 68 ratings. That's the 1 through 5 star global ratings. And then there are 66 written reviews. So 2 things to note. One is, yes, you passed the 50% mark. 50 review mark, which is not easy. It means you put a process in place and you did a lot of follow-up and nurturing. But also almost every single person who went on to do it did it. And there's always some issues where some reviews can't get published and you get the rating and not the review. So it seems like almost every person probably tried to do it. And that's really incredible. And those reviews, was there anything surprising about those early reviews that were coming in?
They were so much longer than I expected. I mean, for me, like to write a review, like you write 2 lines and you've done somebody a great favor. So I was expecting that. I wasn't expecting like 2-3 paragraphs long. So that was a surprise. And then the other surprise were a few people who said that this was much more than a marketing book, that it had changed their life. I mean, that I didn't expect, right? And some were saying, it's much deeper than just a marketing book.
Diane, when you were pulling together your book, you definitely felt like there was information you wanted to pass out to people, get the knowledge out there, not just the 20 people you see on a regular basis. Tell me sort of how you thought about the success of this book. Are you doing any innovative things to market it? Like, how has it been part of your practice that you have?
Well, I certainly have been letting people know about it, but I saw that book more as a vehicle. I've been a speaker for over 40 years, so it was something that I thought would give me added credibility as a speaker. I also thought it would be something that in my book, early within the first few pages, there's the opportunity to download a customized sleep diary that I created. So again, that's a way to get people to stay in touch with me. If they find it helpful and they want the sleep diary, then we can stay in communication and build relationships. And I'm hoping that out of that will come, I teach more than just sleep. Sleep is the foundation of mental health, but I teach the 4 pillars of mental health: building resilience, managing stress. So the idea is that if people love the sleep book and it really helps them and they have more energy and they're sleeping better, then they might be interested in taking some of my courses on stress management and building resilience.
I love that you have that built right in the sleep guide. And Sophie, you also have some tools built in as well. Bruce, I wanted to unpack something you said earlier. You were talking about how your mentor had influenced you to hold yourself to a higher standard. And I think we were talking about the quality of your book. And I have to say, that is you have to write a good book. Like, I'm sorry, like all these people that are, I mean, I'm in some KDP Facebook group, and there's like 207,000 people. Like, it's enormous. These people are just asking, hey, what's a topic that's going to sell? Hey, I published 6 books this month. I'm waiting for sales to come in. Like, what? It's quite the opposite. Like, here we have expertise, right? And we are trying to share that expertise. So Bruce, what did it mean to you to be held to a higher standard? Was it around the quality of the book that you were writing?
That's right. Yeah. And I jokingly tell people I wrote a book that is light in calories, but very rich in nutrient. It's a healthy book to read. So I think I'm close to 12,000 words. And, the average business book's probably 20,000 or 25,000 to 70,000, and some of them even tip over 70. But so I really distilled and had fun with it in that way. That's one of my another mentor who's written some really good books. She planted a seed in my brain that my book should be read in the course of a flight. And especially because of my target audience, busy executives, I don't expect them to read 70,000 words. Most don't. And Robbie, you probably know this. I think the average reader you're lucky if they read the introduction. But so I wanted them to read my book. And then also my wife got involved with it and created illustrations for it. And in my Amazon AI generated review of all the reviews, it highlights the illustrations as one of the favorite aspects. And my wife and I are like just going, yes, she's really good. You can't out AI my wife, not yet anyway. She's really gifted at that. So that was super fun. But yeah, it was just kind of this work of love. The other aspect of it, though, that we haven't touched on is my expertise grew through that writing process. I came up with new distinctions. I became more simple and clear on certain things, and clarified my own brain why. And then also I did a bunch of research to substantiate some of my claims to see if there was science behind it as well. So it was kind of this learning journey and writing journey at the same time to land at this ultimate outcome, that product.
So much to unpack here. So your book's a 5x8, which a standard, I don't know if it's the word standard's quite right, but quite often business books are 6x9, and they could be 200 to 300 pages. So that's like I mean, a 300-page 6x9 book, that's a lot. That's at least 70.
Yeah, here's one of my mentors' book that was guiding me. It's a big fat boy. Here's mine.
Yeah, yours is nice
you guys
and thin
can
for
see
those who are
that.
listening. It's the smaller, right?
Which one of these guys are you going to read? Come
it's
on.
more
No, I'm kidding.
approachable. So yours is 5x8 and 100 pages. And I think you just know you can pick it up and you can flip through it. I love the idea of just reading it on a plane. But also you were just unpacking the idea of like the research and the learning and the fact checking. For all of my books, I always had some maxim that was in my head, and then I had to go figure out, well, who originally said it? That's an interesting thing when things have been repeated. And can you substantiate it? So I had heard over and over again for my latest book, Launch Your Book, An Entrepreneur's Guide to Reviews That Drive Revenue, that over 90% of buyers check reviews before making a purchase. It was like a thing that everyone just accepted. And then I had to find a way to substantiate it. Like, is it a thing? Like, who studies? And that's really sometimes hard to find the original source. Sophie, I know you similarly went through a process of creating a framework as you were developing the book. I mean, it wasn't all new content, but maybe the way you're packaging it shifted. Tell us a little of that journey.
Yeah, so I'm a very visual person, and I did take a course with Simon Bowen on, creating visual models. And the process of taking my expertise and making it fit into a model is an intellectual exercise that I enjoyed greatly. So I appreciate what you said, Bruce. It clarified my thoughts. I mean, I would write a whole chapter and then come back the next day and say, those two concepts are a little too close. Let me clarify some more, right? I love that. I love that whole process. And I if I could, all I would do now is write books, I think. But gotta earn a living, and as we know, books don't really do that. So yeah, having a framework really helped me clarify my ideas. It helped me to share them, present them, and yeah, my book is 5.5 by 8.5, I think, and it's 270 pages. And although people tell me it's an easy read, it reads well, I feel like I want to take pieces of it and write a separate book, like smaller books now, of the components of the magnet model.
Well, it feels like, Diane, you have these different pillars. You could end up with these short books for each pillar. And the best way to sell book 1 is to sell book 2 and 3. But you were already, Diane, creating some content, because you said you were creating these manuals kind of to your future self, since you had all this content you were constantly repeating. Did it shift much from that original content in the manual style to the book style? Was there major edits? Did you have big ahas about frameworks or anything like that? Or was it really just more, I kind of already have the book written, let me make it a book?
That's a really interesting question, Robbie. So I come from the field of academia. I've written, peer-reviewed scholarly articles. I've written a lot of stuff, and I tend to think, or I did think, that the more information you give someone, the better. I'm very thorough and I talk way too much. So initially I thought this was going to be this all-encompassing book about sleep. And the more I thought about it, and the more I thought about what actually helps my clients, it's not me lecturing for 2 hours. It's me saying, okay, the first thing I want you to do is set a consistent bedtime and a consistent wake up time. And it's literally a few sentences. And then I explain, because my background is in neuroscience, I explain, and here's the science behind that. And so it ended up, as I say, being a fairly short book. And it really is literally for every day of the 14 days. Here's what I want you to try now. And you keep each thing for the entire 14 days. So each day you make a new addition to the plan to see what works. But it really is very short. So it really turned out to be more of really a manual. Do this, and here's why. And I had to overcome my feeling that in order to be a proper book, it should be like an encyclopedia of sleep. And as I say, I realized pretty quickly people who are sleep deprived do not want to read that.
Unless you can bore them to sleep, which obviously they tried.
There's an option. That's an option, yeah.
I think distilling ideas down, this makes me also think a lot about doing a TEDx talk, because they're like under 10 minutes, not even 18 anymore. Like they want you to be 8 minutes. It's like, oh my gosh, like that's like I know a lot of things. Like, how do I distill it? But the idea of distilling a book, one of the things that shows up in my little AI produced review of my reviews so far for my new book, the idea that there's no fluff, that showed up for me, Bruce. But they, it's just like the information you need. It's actionable, no fluff. Just like a few stories to illustrate that it's possible, to be inspirational, but like, then we get back to brass tacks. Let's talk about how to actually do it. Bruce, I want to give you some kudos because your book has gathered 121 global ratings. That's, again, the 1 through 5 stars. And 111 people wrote a review for you, which is probably, like, I would say probably that means almost everybody tried to, whether they all got onto Amazon or not. Any thoughts to how you approach that, other than the fact that I know you are known for writing reviews? Which is a good thing to be known for if you're looking for them. But tell me, like, how did that happen? That's a lot of effort.
Yeah, a lot of thoughts. Because I was frustrated. Sophie, so cool to hear that you're hitting your goals. Gosh, at one point I had less than 25, and I'm like just going, what is going on? And and people would tell me they'd write a review for me, and Robbie, you probably heard this story, but one guy even booked 3 separate meetings with me to kind of pick my brains on different things that were important to him. We were both presidents of chapters at one point of NSA. Each time we got together, he'd go, "Oh, Bruce, I'm going to get that review up for you." And I'm like going, "Thank you. I really appreciate that." Never made it up. And Robbie, I saw a note from you about everybody that committed to, supporting your book and the people that actually did. Thank goodness I'm in the good books there. But I've learned a lot about human behavior through that process. And one thing I learned for sure, you got to make it easy. Help people help you. So what I did to shift my strategy a bit is not just asking for a review, but helping people give me a review. And then I started thinking through, what would that mean? How do I make it crazy easy? And Robbie, you're doing a lot of this as well. But I offer a link for where to put the review, so they don't have to fumble. They can just click a link and go. I even go so far as to draft a review for them, from their voice. And then I'm like going, hey, this was just me taking a shot of what you would appreciate, but please, ditch it, do whatever you do, etc. But I just wanted to make it easy as cut, paste, modify, send. And so through that process, a lot of people came back and go, "Thank you, Bruce. I really appreciate it." Mm-hmm. And Robbie, just a quick one. Another guy sent me a big book, big 70,000 word book, asking for a review. When I write a review for somebody, I actually pop that book open and get into it. But sometimes when people ask like that, I my heart sinks a little bit. I want to support them because they're a fellow author, especially if they put the work into it and made a great product. But also it's a lot of work. But and rare is the author that makes that easy. They just go, "Hey, can you write me a review? Okay, see you later." And they put in way less effort than the reviewer. So, I decided to shift that equation.
So many things here. One is, in my experience, if you just sort of ask once, "Hey, will you write a review for my book?" About 1 in 10, if you're lucky, about 1 in 10 will actually get the review on Amazon. And a few of the people who don't will carry guilt about it for years. My wife, in the process of me writing a book about writing reviews, kept talking to me about how a friend of hers wrote a book 2 years ago, and they see each other in book clubs sometimes. She says, every time I see this person, I think, "Oh, I told her I was going to write a review." Well, the author never did follow-up, like made one request, no follow-up. So 2 years later, my wife's still thinking about it. And so finally, I declared it Amnesty Day, and she went and wrote the review, and her friend hasn't even noticed that she did it. Her friend had 5. She was the 5th review on that book. So clearly that was an author who was not putting a lot of energy into it. So you have to make it easy. I provide prompts. I love the idea. I actually make a page that lists all the international Amazon storefronts, both where to buy the book, but also where to review the book, because I do have people around the globe and I don't want to confuse them sending them to .com if they're going to Spain or something.
Yeah.
For a regular, not an endorsement, but for a regular Amazon review, I have so far refrained from suggesting people draft reviews. And the reason is I really, really want them to open it. Like everything you've said up to this point is, I wrote a really quality book. It's not too long. It's exactly what they need. So it's like, if the right person got it in their hands, it would actually be really beneficial. And so I'm thinking about like Diane's book, which, by the way, everyone who's listening, go buy Diane's book, leave her a review. It's like 14 Days of Better Sleep. Who can't use that? But, if you don't do the activities in the book, it's like putting the book under your pillow is not going to do it. Like we all like, so I always am like torn about getting people to actually crack it, even to read the introduction. Sophie, how do you get people to open your books? Tell me what your thoughts are on all this.
So I don't know if it's working, but I think one of the things we can do is, there's a lot of resistance to opening a book and then actually reading it through. It's a lot of work we're putting our readers through. So one of the things that I'm working on is putting it out there in all kinds of different formats. And so I'm doing I recorded the chapters one by one. I know it's called an audiobook, but this is not an audiobook. It's a podcast. I put it in the form of a podcast on Substack so people can subscribe. And then so many people have told me, they don't go and say I hadn't read the book, but they say, oh, I'm so grateful that you put the podcast out, because now, I'm listening to the chapters and all of that. I do, I create little summaries in PowerPoint format and share that. I share a lot of it on LinkedIn, and I'm thinking of other ways to start really sharing that content in drip format.
You're making it as easy as possible. And I think this makes sense for your audience, because they weren't necessarily looking for a book about marketing, because they've already decided they hate marketing.
Right.
So you have an additional level of resistance, because they were already like, yeah. So they have to get enough of a glimpse of who you are and how you approach this to think this might work for them. So I love that you're giving them sort of other ways in. I'm going to go to Bruce and then Diane. You all want to jump in. I love it. Bruce, jump in.
Oh, could you do Diane first? I lost the trail there.
Absolutely. Diane, what would you like to add?
Well, I was just going to say, one of the things that I've been doing is I tend to speak on a fair number of podcasts, or, I spoke on Judy Baker's Buzzworthy Bistro last week. And so what I often do is I give the top 5 tips for getting a better night's sleep. And I find that when people hear the top 5 tips, they do want to learn more. So I think that being on podcasts, or even, giving workshops in person, that really sparks people's desire to read the book when they realize how very practical the tips are. And science-based.
What I'm hearing for all of you is that you didn't just write a book and put it on sale and then go back to life. Like, you're all trying to get that content out as talks, podcast guesting, creating audio versions. Even if it's I love what you just said, Sophie, is that some people don't. I've decided I'm not going to spend money to make an audiobook. My first book, I did an audio version and I gave away as bonus content, but I didn't upload it to Audible. I did my darndest to make a clean, audio version. But you don't make all the money back. But if what you're doing, like, I could make a podcast version with a lot less stress than trying to make an Audible version. And it's just accessible to people. And I don't have to think about what I'm charging. I just want to give people clips. But just like, even that, making video clips, making these little reels or carousels, or what are they called? Faceless videos, which we can put out. Bruce and then Sophie.
Yeah, boy, that's so interesting that you made a conscious choice not to do an Audible book. I am finding when I talk to people, some people are more audio oriented and appreciate that. And Robbie, I don't know if dare I say, could I coach you? But it wasn't very difficult for me to do it myself and upload it, get it approved through KDP, et cetera. And I can see we both have big gun microphones. So, and that's what I used. And it was with Adobe's cleanup tool, just to cut out the pregnant pauses, etc. But it worked out just great.
It's also a question of whether your book is a kind of book people will follow. Like mine's more instructional, so that's why I kind of lean away from it. My last book was a manual for using Zoom. The one before that was about like networking. So
then you could put people to sleep with it and support Diane's mission.
There we go. Diane, back to you. What would you like to add?
It was Sophie.
Oh, Sophie, back to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So Bruce, I might take you up on that because I would like to have an audible version of.
Oh, good.
And when I put the file together of all my chapters and I uploaded it, it said some kind of gobbledygook that it's not good enough. So I was like, okay, I got the message. But anyway, now I've lost my other. Oh, no, yeah. So when you're recording your own book, you can also use, after you've recorded 2 or 3 chapters, you can then use 11 labs, and the rest, that's what I did for mine. And then the rest of the book is you feed it the text and it reads in your voice. I can tell the difference, but nobody I know, my family, my friends, my colleagues, nobody can tell which one is read by me and which one is the 11.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting. That's really
yeah. Mark Schaefer did that on one of his books as well. One of his most popular books, actually. And it's excellent. I know him personally, and it sounds exactly like him. 11 Labs is unbelievable. One thing I enjoyed, though, back to the benefit to the self, doing an audiobook, you have to retrain your brain to do that. And so just that I was thinking about my brain development through that process is pretty wild.
It is. It's more than just reading into the microphone, because like when I did mine, the first one, I mean, keeping your voice even, it's such work to not sound like you're starting and stopping. I mean, it's a science, not just an art. Like it's so, not having a producer in the room, sitting there myself 9:30 at night with lots of water, right? Like I remember doing it. But yeah, there's these new tools out there to help you clean it up and create it, and like the AI versions. I'm going to shift us to a question before we close. I'm actually curious to hear success stories, and the frame I'll use is because I'm an author. So how would you answer that question? Because I'm an author, like, are there any particular doors that have opened up to you? And I'm watching you all do deep thinking. You all looked up in the same direction, which tells me you're thinking deeply. Diane, you've got something to share because you're an author?
Well, I think it definitely does open the door for more speaking opportunities on a bit of a wider, a broader space. So I live in a fairly small town. I'm well known. I've been a business professor. I mean, I get asked to speak all the time. But not long ago, I actually applied to speak at a big event in Toronto for an international conference for women in public relations. And I'm pretty sure the reason that they had me speak was because I said I was an author. And I'm brand new. I mean, my book is just launching now, but it was just, I'm sure that gave the extra cachet.
Yeah, it's interesting because so many people talk about writing books. I think the study I remember hearing was 82% of people said they wanted to write a book, and 1% of the people surveyed had done it. I think, in my circles, everyone's writing books, but that's not true. Everyone is not writing books. So having actually done it, it does give you that extra level of credibility. And also you said something and you stood by it. Like, now you get a stage to say more things. Sophie, what would you say to that prompt of because I'm an author?
Yeah, I think it's a little early. It was just 2 months ago it came out, so I don't have that much. But I think that when I'm invited on podcasts and things, when I'm introduced for presentations, people, I hear it in people's tone, like, well, she wrote the book about it. So I feel like they are reflecting that credibility that I think you get from writing a book. So
I love that phrase. I mean, she wrote the book about it. Like
right.
that is true.
Yeah.
She did do that. Bruce, how about you?
Yeah, I do think the credibility perception, puts you in a new class for sure. You made me laugh a little bit. I wonder about those stats of how many people dream and actually do it. But I was in a master class of budding authors. I'm the only one out of 40 that published. So,
wow.
that didn't work, but, it's a lot of work, as you guys realize, and to actually go through that process and make it work. Not for the many.
Any big success stories for you, Bruce, that are related to the fact that you're an author?
Oh, one of my favorites was a guy. He told me he's on 14 boards down in Silicon Valley, and scheduled time with me. And just landed on my calendar, and I met with him, and my wife and I were getting ready to leave on a road trip. And he started telling me about his background after talking about the book and talking about me. And I was like, just going, why'd you want to meet? And he goes, oh, I just wanted to meet the author. Yeah, I just did. And I've given this to one of my management teams. We're using it.
Wow.
Another guy, Ericsson, that big, huge telecommunications company. They've standardized on my book as part of their go-to-market, building their stories around that. And that just came out of nowhere. The guy just reached out and goes, Bruce, just wanted to let you know what we're doing. Great job. That just brings so much joy to me. It's unbelievable.
When we're sitting there writing the book and rewriting the book and then writing a different book and then editing the different, right? Like when we're doing the ups and the downs of the author journey, it's a pretty isolating experience. Like you might be part of a cohort. You might have a writing coach, but you still have to be the one who does the work.
Mm-hmm.
And to finally have it out in the world and have people responding in that way, both giving you credibility, but also giving you the response of this is what we're doing with it. This is the impact it's having. This is why we think it's so great. Wow. Sophie, what would you like to add?
Because I'm now doing programs where I have a small cohort that is actually implementing the book. The intense joy that I have from having people, they're doing the homework because they have accountability. They're in this. It's a lot of work to apply my book. So, but the joy of seeing them, their epiphanies and the changes that they're expressing that are coming out from doing the work, doing the exercises, it is so friggin' satisfying.
Yeah. It's like the kind of thing that you can't see around the corner too. But when you hang out with other authors and you hear a story like this, you could maybe start to imagine that being as one of your goals in the future is to run a program and have people actually, go through the paces of your book and get those outcomes. And, a lot of times people are so focused on getting the book done, they don't have the capacity to think about what's next. And so I'm a strategist before I'm anything. So I'm always like, well, no, the what's next has to be the start. Like what's next? Now write the book that will help get to that. But it's hard to dream in a vacuum. So I love when, we're connecting, whether it's through these Kindle flash sales, which is the reason we all got together, or it's being part of author groups. Like we have our community at the BizBook Pub Hub community events that we host every other month. I think it's those moments to kind of give a little inspiration. Speaking of inspiration, I'd love folks to know how to find you and follow your work. So, Bruce, how can people connect with you?
Yeah, on my just below my name, there's valuepros.io. That's a firm that I co-founded about 1.5 years ago, and we're kind of ramping up. And on LinkedIn, I'm in there too much every day, but that's a great way to connect with me.
Fantastic. By the way, all these links are going to be in the show notes at bizbookpubhub.com. Diane, how can people find you and follow your work?
I am very active on LinkedIn as well. I'm Diane M. Wolf on LinkedIn, and my website is just dianewolf.com if people want to go there.
Excellent. And Sophie?
Yes, LinkedIn is the best place to find me, Sophie Lechner. And then also my website is themagnetmodel.com. And if you do /book, you can learn more about my book.
We're going to put all the links in the show notes, as well as links to each of your books so people can find those and go get them and read them and leave reviews, hint, for them. And I want you to also go over to bizbookpubhub.com, not just for today's show notes, but for show notes for all the episodes. We have episodes every Tuesday and Thursday, value-packed, great content. I'm so grateful to the authors who come and share. And 3 times a year, I organize a Kindle flash sale so you can learn more information about that. Great opportunity to get discounted books, but also spread the word about the book that you've written. And we have our community events a couple times every other month. And then we also have events for speakers every opposite month. And a curated directory of a couple of dozen experts who support entrepreneurs in becoming successful authors. So go to bizbookpubhub.com to get all that and probably much more that I keep forgetting about. And I'll see you all next time. Panel, thank you so much for this conversation. It's been really great.
Bye.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank
Yay.
you.